Xabi Alonso heading to Chelsea. What a massive step up from Liam Rosenior. From LinkedIn Liam to real management. You go from aging men literally to Mr. Aura himself stepping into the Chelsea dugout. Just kidding. Look, I still rate Liam Rosenior. Honestly, I do not blame him one bit for the absolute mess at Chelsea. The ownership tossed the guy straight into the deep end without a floaty. He never really had a chance to survive. Hey, at least he secured a massive payout. Now he just waits it out a bit, drops down to a smaller club like he did at Strasbourg, and rebuilds his whole football career. But make no mistake, Xabi Alonso is a clear, undeniable upgrade. Massive news is pouring out of Stamford Bridge tonight, mere hours after their crushing domestic cup final loss to Manchester City. Chelsea are officially one step closer to making Xabi Alonso their new boss, with a deal finally agreed. Our chief correspondent Kaveh Solokol joins us live right now in the studio. So Kaveh, why Xabi Alonso? Well, simply put, he is the #1 target Chelsea decided is the absolute right man to take charge full-time. I am genuinely shocked that Blueco finally made a smart footballing decision. I am equally stunned that Liverpool just sat back and let this rival deal happen. I think everybody assumed that once Xabi Alonso hit the open market right, while Arne Slot was seriously struggling, it was going to be an absolute match made in heaven for them. Does this have something to do with Liverpool operating in the shadows, quietly hunting for a new manager? We know Arne Slot still has 1 year remaining on his current deal. Slot publicly stated he has every single reason to believe he will still be the main man in charge next season. So if you love a good conspiracy, you are probably wondering, did Chelsea strike lightning fast just to block everyone else from grabbing Xabi Alonso? I mean, rumours linked Xabi Alonso to the Anfield dugout all the way back when he was still managing over at Leverkusen. Everyone swore Xabi was destined to be the natural successor to Jurgen Klopp. It just never materialised. He packed his bags for Real Madrid, and the second he got sacked, the rumour mill fired back up. Clearly, that dream is dead. But you know, other opportunities pop up. What is the best possible deal I can get for my client? Here is the reality. He can only take the jobs on the table, and there is zero vacancy at Liverpool right now. I know plenty of Liverpool fans would kill to have him back, but he simply was not offered the gig. So Liverpool is stuck with their Dutch Lex Luthor, while Chelsea just landed the best manager on the open market. Alonso checks every single box for a Blues squad desperately missing experience. He brings a wealth of tactical experience. He loves a 3-4-3 system, and Chelsea has plenty of ballers who fit that mould perfectly. We saw it under Callum McFarland. He is absolutely going to need more centre-backs, of course. Enzo Maresca needed them too, but Alonso inherited plenty of guys ready to slot right into the specific tactical roles he demands. Cucurella can easily dominate as a left wing back. Malo Gusto locks down the right. He has Fofana and Colwill anchoring the back line. Moises Caicedo would absolutely feast in a double pivot system. Alonso can deploy João Pedro exactly how he used Victor Boniface over at Leverkusen. Xabi can unleash Cole Palmer in the exact same creator role he built for Florian Wirtz. Remember, before Xabi Alonso arrived, Jeremy Frimpong was relatively unknown. Under the Spaniard, he transformed into the best right wing back on the planet. I mean, him and Grimaldo racked up a ridiculous number of assists, totally torching every single defence in their path. Who is to say Xabi cannot do the exact same thing with Cucurella and Malo Gusto? You might laugh today, but Grimaldo and Frimpong were barely on the radar back then. Sure, Grimaldo was a decent player at Benfica, but absolutely nobody predicted that those two guys would rise to the top of the assist charts across the top 5 European leagues. We might even watch Alonso squeeze the best out of guys like Liam Delap. He might actually play like a real footballer instead of a pro wrestler. Same exact thing goes for Pedro Neto, maybe even Garnacho. Okay, I will not push it that far. Now, Xabi Alonso clearly loves a 3-4-3, but unlike Ruben Amorim, he is never stubbornly rigid with his tactics. At Real Madrid, he constantly flowed between a 3-4-3 and a 4-2-3-1. I watched him tweak it non-stop during the Club World Cup. Sometimes Aurelien Tchouameni played as the third centre-back. Other times, he simply stepped into midfield, smoothly reverting the shape to a 4-2-3-1. The Chelsea squad can execute that exact same fluidity under Alonso. He could drop Moises Caicedo into a back three for build-up, then push him up into the double pivot during attacks. Earlier I called Xabi Alonso experienced, and some of you probably laughed. Technically speaking, as a professional manager, he just has not been in the game all that long. But in his incredibly brief time on the touchline, the man has won massive trophies and seen absolutely everything. I mean, this guy completely shattered the Bundesliga monopoly. And he did it with Bayer Leverkusen. He didn't pull this off with Borussia Dortmund. He revived a broken Leverkusen squad sitting down in 17th place when he took charge. Then you look at his Real Madrid run. Even though it ended poorly, it definitely taught him how to balance massive egos and navigate a true elite club. Because honestly, while Leverkusen is a big deal in Germany, jumping to Real Madrid is a completely different universe. It is a massive step up regarding dressing room egos, ruthless demands for trophies, and the intense media glare watching you. That intense pressure cooker perfectly trained him to handle top-tier drama. Stepping into Chelsea will feel entirely comfortable now. Plus, as a player, his tactical education was genuinely off the charts. For starters, his father played professionally and later managed. Beyond that brilliant tactical education at home, this guy spent his entire playing career absorbing ideas from an absolute legendary roster of world-class football managers. First off, he knows the English top flight inside out from his playing days at Liverpool. Let's kick off with that playing career. Under Rafael Benitez at Anfield, he learned the ropes. No league title there, but he did lift the Champions League trophy. After that, a massive move to Real Madrid to play under prime Jose Mourinho. We're talking about peak Mourinho here, fresh off winning the legendary treble with Inter Milan. Peak ego, absolute peak performances. And Xabi Alonso wasn't just making up the numbers or sitting on the bench, he was a true Galactico, part of that massive Real Madrid rebuild in the summer of 2008 alongside Cristiano Ronaldo, Karim Benzema and Kaká. Xabi was right in the mix. After Mourinho, Carlo Ancelotti takes charge. Then a transfer to Bayern Munich pairs him with Pep Guardiola, so he soaked up defensive masterclasses directly from Jose Mourinho. He mastered liquid, attacking football under Pep, and he learnt exactly how to rob teams blind in the final minutes from Carlo Ancelotti and Rafael Benitez. Don't believe me? Just look at how many stoppage time winners his Bayer Leverkusen squad smashed in. Seriously, you could edit an entire movie out of them. Pure fire. Now you might be asking, if Alonso is such an elite tactician with all this world-class experience, why on earth did Real Madrid show him the door? Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because for anyone not closely following Spanish football every single weekend, it might completely shock you to hear that Xabi Alonso was never sacked over poor results. Look, I'm not claiming the guy was flawless, or that he was guaranteed to lift the La Liga trophy if he stuck around. Real Madrid definitely hit a brutal slump, the absolute low point being that painful loss to Barcelona in the Super Cup final, but again, that's simply not why Xabi was pushed out. I think everybody and their grandmother knew this massive Real Madrid rebuild was going to take some serious patience. In fact, that's the exact reason Xabi Alonso was hired in the first place. That Madrid squad was never getting fixed in a single season, and a 6-month turnaround is impossible when half the locker room absolutely hates your guts. The players literally staged a mutiny to force Xabi Alonso out. Let that sink in for a second. Okay, maybe not half. I might be exaggerating slightly, but it definitely felt like a coup because the real heavyweights in that dressing room decided they just despised him. Do you realize how toxic you have to be to hate Xabi? The man is universally respected as one of the absolute classiest figures in modern football, at least off the pitch. On the grass, he threw in some wild tackles, especially during those heated prime Real Madrid versus Barcelona clashes where things got dark. But overall, as a human being, Xabi Alonso is widely considered to be a genuinely great guy. The only vocal critics calling him a terrible head coach are Vinicius fans, not even actual Real Madrid supporters. The fans pushing back against Alonso simply idolize Vinicius Junior over the actual club. And honestly, why would anyone value the football opinions of that crowd? They choose to defend one of the most frustratingly inconsistent forwards out there. A player who throws massive tantrums every 2 minutes. We're talking about a Brazilian star who literally gave Ronaldo depression. Not a joke. Ronaldo publicly admitted that watching Vinicius lead the Brazilian national squad at the Copa America completely drained his joy for the sport. Later, he claimed it was just engagement bait to sell some product. But honestly, I don't think Ronaldo was entirely kidding. If you want to fully grasp just how mind-blowing Xabi Alonso being sacked from Real Madrid truly was, Read the detailed inside reports published by The Athletic. They revealed that players, coaching staff, and even executives had absolutely zero clue it was happening. The poor man was hired in May, only to be brutally axed halfway through the campaign. So what exactly made these players, or at least a toxic handful of them, despise Alonso? Well, it looks like massive egos got bruised simply because the new manager dared to change the dressing room culture. Which again, I have no idea why that shocked anyone. That was the primary reason he was hired. The Madrid board closely watched his Bayer Leverkusen miracle. He dragged a broken squad facing relegation and turned them into absolute, untouchable Bundesliga conquerors. They were 90 minutes away from an invincible treble. Do you realize how historically insane that achievement is? Sure, they were playing in the Europa League instead of the main Champions League, but the run was still outrageous. One single match away, ruined only by Atalanta. So Xabi arrives in Madrid, carrying huge momentum, and immediately tries to force actual discipline, heavier pressing, sharper tactics, higher training intensity, strict punctuality, and zero dressing room leaks. Just think about that. These are literal, bare minimum expectations. He simply asked professionals to train hard and keep the starting 11 a secret. Honestly, I can guarantee he'd ship out Garnacho instantly for that. The Athletic reported that Xabi noticed deeply ingrained lazy habits among the Real Madrid squad on his very first day. He spotted the rot instantly. Naturally, Carlo Ancelotti never bothered fixing it, because what made the Italian such an elite, beloved man manager was quite frankly letting superstar players operate however they pleased. I know Carlo recently went on a podcast denying this, claiming the idea that Madrid stars run the show is totally false. Complete fiction, he said. Absolutely not true, but the reality is glaringly obvious. A fresh tactical manager walks in and immediately sees a squad full of untouchable prima donnas who have spent years building absolutely terrible professional habits. Unsurprisingly, the heavy hitters hated Xabi Alonso enforcing new rules. A few specific stars, especially Vinicius, complained that the strict system killed their creative freedom. Oh, the horror. My coach is forcing me to hold width on the touchline as a true winger. I can't just lazily wander around anymore. Meanwhile, other players felt Alonso's tactics were just way too rigid and demanding. This is actually pretty hilarious. It reminds me of a pre-season clip right after Xabi joined, probably just before the Club World Cup. Whoever runs the social media accounts over at Real Madrid, and they were down at the training ground interviewing the squad after a brutal session. Every single player was dripping with sweat, looking completely exhausted. The new signings, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Alvaro Carreras, absolutely loved it. They looked exactly like guys who had just trained incredibly hard, but they totally embraced the heavy workload, loving the feeling of pushing their bodies to the absolute limit. Then they ask Vinny, and he looks half dead, just completely out of breath. That instantly caught my eye when I first watched the clip. You have Vini? A guy who probably should have won the Ballon d'Or last season, a superstar with multiple Champions League titles, yet he found a standard summer training session completely exhausting. That felt so weird to me. And it made perfect sense after Xabi got sacked because it perfectly backs up those reports from The Athletic. A lot of the established veterans just found his methods too intense and way too much of a sudden change. Alonso tried to modernize Madrid, but the dressing room pushed back. He demanded basic high standards, and those guys simply said, "No man, we don't do that here." According to The Athletic, the main players who actually backed Alonso were Kylian Mbappe, Tchouaméni, Arda Güler, Ceballos, and Raúl Asensio. Meanwhile, the guys who were reportedly furious with Alonso included Jude Bellingham, Vini, and Valverde. So naturally, the squad fractured into political camps. That is exactly why I mentioned earlier that half the locker room wanted him gone. If you look closely at the starting 11 and filter it down to the players carrying the most weight and influence in that dressing room, you get a massive split. Because honestly, with all due respect, some players' opinions just do not matter in that locker room. At least that is how things operate at Real Madrid. The bigger your name, the louder your voice, and the more pull you actually have. You can see it right now between Kylian Mbappe and Arbeloa. It makes sense since Mbappe fully backed Xabi Alonso. He believed in the project's direction, he was scoring goals, and Real Madrid looked sharp. But then you had guys like Vini, who were struggling to find their individual rhythm. Now the script is flipped. Alonso gets sacked, Arbeloa steps in, and Vini is suddenly happy again. But guess what? Madrid keep on losing. So toward the bitter end of his tenure, when the pressure was getting entirely out of hand, Xabi just went right back to square one. He essentially copied Carlo Ancelotti's playbook. far fewer video sessions, and way less rigid tactical instructions for the squad. He gave them complete freedom on the pitch. The results stayed poor, and the dressing room toxicity remained, and those key players still refused to buy into his philosophy. Well, some of them anyway. The guys I mentioned earlier having a great year like Arda, Tchouaméni and Mbappe, they still backed Xabi all the way. I specifically wanted to highlight those reports because, for one, I know plenty of Chelsea fans simply do not watch La Liga. They do not follow the daily drama or the endless soap operas coming out of Real Madrid. But I want you all to realise that Xabi was not fired because of bad results. Truthfully, he had actually done a very solid job managing that football club. At one stage, they were sitting pretty at the top of La Liga. The players simply hated his system and ousted him the second form took a slight dip. Now, you might be thinking, look, the Chelsea locker room is super toxic too. These players burn through managers like it is a competitive sport, but it is completely different. Yes, the Chelsea dressing room is toxic, but it is nothing compared to the absolute chaos at Real Madrid. Over there, guys are literally fighting, hosting UFC pay-per-view brawls inside the locker room. Players are ending up in the hospital. Nothing remotely like that happens at Chelsea. And remember, at Real Madrid, Xabi won 24 of his 34 games. A 70% win rate. He lost his job purely over dressing room politics, clashing with the massive egos at Real Madrid. Ultimately, the club president chose to back the superstar players instead of the manager. Looking ahead, sure, the Chelsea dressing room can be incredibly tough to handle. They have big egos in there too. But honestly, it is nothing like Real Madrid. The worst that happened recently is the squad turning on Liam Rosenior. And that was not even because they lacked respect for him. Even though that might be partly true, those guys were mostly just furious that Maresca got sacked mid-season for absolutely no valid reason at all. Look, I am not saying Maresca was flawless. His results definitely dipped, but he never actually lost that locker room. Then you replace him with Liam Rosenior, who is pretty decent, but just not quite at the level to handle those massive egos yet. Problems were inevitable. But that is simply not happening with a guy like Xabi Alonso. He is a vastly bigger name than anyone Clear Lake has hired as manager so far. Some of those Chelsea players might have genuinely felt bigger than Rosenior, but absolutely nobody's going to pull that ego trip with Xabi Alonso. Like I pointed out earlier, even during Maresca's worst stretch, he never lost the locker room. So even if Xabi hits a rough patch of form, I really do not see these players just suddenly turning on him like they did before, especially with such a young squad. Chelsea does not have a Vini in their ranks. They do not have a Kylian Mbappe or a Jude Bellingham. There are zero Galacticos here. Obviously, Xabi's success still heavily relies on smart recruitment. They must sign the right profiles. Maresca was doing fairly well, and they still failed to buy him a centre-back. We also noticed he is officially labelled as manager rather than head coach like the guys before him. Is that just semantics or a big deal? Oh, I definitely think it matters. If you ask most football coaches what title they actually prefer, they always choose manager, purely because it hands you way more direct authority. And I firmly believe Xabi Alonso is getting way more operational control at Chelsea now. Interestingly enough, reports say it was actually Chelsea's idea to hand him that specific title. He never demanded it, but you are absolutely right. He is gaining far more power and way more input into how the entire football club operates. So he's going to need the right signings, plus time to actually build his tactical vision. Xabi Alonso is a long-term builder. No matter what goes wrong in those first 6 to 8 months, you simply cannot judge him yet. He needs his kind of players. He has to stamp his tactical philosophy right onto this squad. Now, the huge advantage here is that Chelsea will probably only have to worry about one match a week. Even if they sneak into Europe, it will be a Mickey Mouse Cup run, absolutely not the Champions League. So they can copy what they did in Maresca's first season, which means starting the main squad in Premier League clashes and rotating the reserves for those Conference League or Europa League nights. That hands Xabi much more time on the training pitch to completely fine-tune his tactical sessions. It is basically exactly what happened with Michael Carrick when he inherited Manchester United after Ruben Amorim. United got knocked out of every single cup competition. That left them focusing on one league fixture a week, which is absolute perfection for a newly appointed manager. The other factor is Xabi Alonso carries a massive point to prove. He was world football's hottest managerial property at Bayer Leverkusen, but his reputation definitely took a hit at Real Madrid. Even though the second he got sacked, Madrid completely fell apart. So his stock instantly bounced back. The whole world saw he was never the root issue. Even the biggest doubters who demanded Xabi leave quickly realised under Arbeloa that, sure, a few players might have been happier. Happier because he brought them donuts and acted like a total yes-man. Arbeloa might be a stronger tactician than Rosenior, but it was the exact same kind of hire. The board brought in Arbeloa just like Chelsea hired Rosenior simply because he would smile, nod, and do whatever the ownership demanded. Arbeloa literally walked into every single press conference saying, "It is my fault, put the blame on me," even when it was glaringly obvious he was not to blame. I mean, on his second day, Madrid lost to a second-tier club. You simply cannot blame an interim coach for that mess. But yes, Xabi is absolutely desperate to silence his critics, because there are still fans out there who genuinely believe he deserved the sack at Real Madrid, that he was the core problem. He wants to prove those people completely wrong, and now he gets his chance in the Premier League. And look, we all know English football is a totally different beast. The Bundesliga was practically a two-horse title race. La Liga is essentially a three-team battle. The Premier League is brutal chaos. But remember, Xabi Alonso has played on these pitches before. He understands the intensity the English game demands, and the man is an elite tactician. Now, one specific player I am incredibly eager to see Xabi unlock is midfield engine Moises Caicedo, to see exactly how dominant the Ecuadorian has been for Chelsea, and how he fully justified that massive price tag. You have to watch this video right here.